Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Thank you. How are you, Gilly?
I'm really, really well. So welcome. Thank you so much for doing this webinar today. We're really excited about it. So everyone, if you don't know, it's Reza Rad from Eradicad. He's an amazing speaker. He's going to be talking about some great tips that we should know for data preparation for Power BI. You can always check out Reza at his website, and you can also see him on our MVP site. So Reza, with that, take it away. Thanks so much again for doing this. I'm super excited about what's coming up.
Thank you. Thank you, Kelly, for the introduction, and thanks for the opportunity. This session is about data preparation tricks you should know for Power BI solution. A little bit background about me. I'm Reza Rad. I'm a consultant, trainer, and coach in Radicad. I'm author of some Power BI books. One of them is specifically about Power Query, which is kind of related to this session, and you can download that one from our website, from Radicad website for free. The contact information are all down in the slides, and feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. Now, this session is mostly demos, like my usual type of session, which I do tons of demos. So this session is a bunch of demos. I have just 5 slides. 3 of them are just passed right now. So list of demos that I'm going to do. The first one is I'm using get data from email, but getting data from email specifically is not something that you should know, because that's something that might happen only occasionally. But through that demo, I'll show you some basic filtering data, cleaning data, using specific approaches for data type changes. Then I'll show you some other demos for locating a specific record in a data file, pivot and unpivot, their scenarios of using, merging, and append, their differences. So it would be a bunch of demos, and we'll go through them one by one. The first one I'm going to show you, and I'll start opening my Power BI file, is an email example. Let's say I have some CSV files coming through an email to me, and I want to get those data. So I'll go to get data, and I'll start with get data from email, Microsoft Exchange. Now, this would ask for your email address. I have a specific email address which I use for this demo, right? Now I'll use my Microsoft account, login. Now this works perfectly fine for emails that are Office 365 emails. If your email system is something different, you probably need a little bit different process for that. Okay, I'll just go ahead with that. Oh, wrong password. So one more time. Hopefully this works. Yep, here it is. Okay, now I have my email connected. When I say connect, this will show me list of all emails, everything that I have in my mailbox. This includes the emails itself, the calendar invites or anything that I have over there, meeting request, list of people in your Outlook. Sometimes you have that list of tasks and things like that. Now for this one, let's say I focus on my mails, I'll get that, and I say transform data, which will bring me into the Power Query editor. This is a place that you have all the data preparation, let's say, techniques and features you can use over here, right? So what I'm going to do is to focus on emails that have an attachment, right? Here I have a list of all emails, their subject, sender, everything like that. And I'm going to filter this for those that has an attachment. And there is a field here that has attachment, which is false. I'm going to change that to become true. So as you see, I filter data just like this, right? So getting data from email is just like a template. I'm using it to show you how I can easily filter the data. So this shows me now everything that has an attachment. And you see that these are few emails with an attachment, right? And you can see that I have already some emails with this, but just to make it quite fresh, I'll send an email just now in my other screen, which you don't see it, but I'm just using it to send an email, and then we'll check the result over here. So I'll remove this attachment, sending it to this email. Okay, I sent the email. This should come fairly quickly, and I'll just refresh it as well over here. So this might take a little bit of time to come. Yeah, here it is. You see that now I have 4 emails. Previously I had 3, and the last one, or let's say the first one in this list, which is the most recent one, is the one that is just arrived 2nd of May. I'm in New Zealand. It is 2nd of May, by the way, right now, not 1st of May, living in the future. OK, now I can even filter this data. I can say, OK, give me all of those that have been received or sent, let's say in the past, I can say in the previous 1 month, right? Right, and this will only filter those that are in the previous 1 month, or I can say any other filterings, right? In this case, I just want to say everything that is, let's say, after 1st of May, just to filter it for those that are related to this specific session, right? So this would be just this one that I sent right now, right? So I filtered my emails, and this is the email that I want. I can also filter for the subject line. In this case, the subject line is already filtered, so I don't really need to filter anything else for that. I can filter it for those that are in this folder, in the inbox folder, because I might have many other folders, right? I can filter it based on who sent the email, but here you can see that sender is not actually a normal field. It's a record. A record is like a compound field, let's say. I can expand it into the sender name and sender address. Then I have these two, and I can filter it based on sender address, for example, right? So in addition to do all of these, we also have a field here, which is the actual attachment, right? So all of these, you use it to filter the data, but then you have a column attachments, which is the actual attachment of the email, right? If I click on this field, this will actually expand it to the underlying data, right? Now, because this might be more than one email, so I don't click on the table itself. The way I do it is just filtering any other columns, removing them. So right click, remove other columns. You see that these are very simple transformations in Power Query. So now I have all the attachments fields, and they should have a list of tables, which I can go and expand that table to the underlying data. So I'll just do that, and this will become a table with the attachment details. Here you can see the attachment is this file. It's a file with this name. It's a CSV file, and this is the size of the file, and the binary, which is the content of that file, right? So I got all of these information, which now I can open this and see the result. For doing that, again, I don't need the remaining information. I just remove other columns and click on this. This will combine those files. In this case, it's just one file, but if I have more than that, it will combine them into a structure like this, which will come in a second, right? So Power Query behind the scene creates a function from that file and run it for every record. In this case, because I have only one file, it doesn't really make so much difference to have the function, but later on when I have more files, when I send another email with more files, you'll see that how it is working, right? Okay, so this is the file expanded now. Let me just show you that file in the CSV format as well, so you can see it. So this is that file. This is the file we are talking about. You see that file with the headers, with all the columns, with the rows is all loaded up here. Now I can do some transformations, easy transformations to get rid of those results. But before doing that, let me first bring some more emails, because so far we've been just looking at one email with one single file. So what I'll do is I'll send another email. I'll just bring that window to send email over here so you can see it as well. So I'll send another email. And this time I'll add a couple of more files into this. All right. But one thing you need to notice is that I repeated the same file again. So I had this file emailed before. I'm repeating that one, and I'm adding 2 more files, right? Now their names is not exactly the same, but it is kind of a file like that. So I'll send it again. Now, it will take a few seconds for this email to arrive, but as soon as it arrives, when I refresh it, I should see some new data. But the thing is that some transformations in Power BI are dependent on the underlying structure. So refresh might not always works when you change the data. So we'll see what it happens here, and then we'll fix that. So I'll click on refresh. This will scan that emails again, all the emails coming. It will go through that process of filtering data, all of those with the attachments, and combine them all together. You see that this is combined and it brings all of those files as well. But the thing is that it also brings some stuff that are not really data rows. Now you might wonder what these are. If you noticed in the email that I sent, in the last email that I sent, there was a signature in that email. In that signature, I had images, right? These are those files, which obviously are not files that I want to analyze. So what I'll do is I'll go a few steps back here in the list of steps, and that is a good thing to always look at in the applied steps in Power Query to see that what you have done before, right? So I'll go a few steps back. Probably I'll start from the step that I filtered everything to have emails. So here you see that I have those emails. Then I expanded sender, which is not an important part. Then I filtered to have only attachments. I expanded attachments, and here it is. Here is a very critical part. When I expanded attachments, I see that I have files with different extensions, right? CSV file, PNG file, JPG file, those are probably parts of my signature in that email. What I'm interested only here is CSV files. So I'll just add an extra filter here in the extension saying that, okay, just give me CSV file. I'm not interested in anything else. And this will insert that as a step here, and everything after this would be fixed based on that, right? Now that's one thing. Another thing is that if you noticed, I have one file repeated twice here, this file, right? I can get rid of that as well, and that is using this approach that I click on that column, which I expect to be, let's say, unique file names or something like that. And then I say remove rows, remove duplicates, right? That would be removing duplicates only based on the column that I selected, right? So that would be also one more step here. And now I have unique files list, and the rest of steps should be all working just fine. Here it is. Now I have the final data tables are all joined and working fine with each other. Of course, I have some header rows that I need to fix, but in terms of filtering data, everything was fine so far, right? So that's one part of the whole thing, to make sure that you have applied the right filtering in your data to get it through. Another part is this. Now you see that I have some extra rows that I don't need. Now I can go ahead and apply some transformations here to remove any rows with activities or things like that, but it is easier if I do it at the original function file, because this function file is where this file is produced for this output is produced for one file, and I can repeat that for other files. So I'll click on that. You see this is produced for one of those sample files, then it is repeated as a function, as a base for other files. So if I could fix this, the result is I would get it fixed for anything else, right? Now look at the final one, which is male here. You see that we have some rows which is totally blank. I'm going to transform sample file, and I'm saying that remove rows, remove blank rows, which means a row that has all columns blank. Remove blank rows. That is gone here, but when I go to the male, which is final result, you see that that blank row is gone from everywhere, right? So if I want to apply a transformation on all files, definitely better to do it in here. Another thing is removing the first row here. So I'll go back again to this function query. The function query is the one that is under this folder. Function query, and this time I say remove top rows, remove top one row. That gets rid of that, and again here you see exactly the same thing. All activities rows are gone. The next one is column header. Now here comes the interesting part. When you do some transformations in Power Query, those transformations sometimes are dependent on the column itself. For example, let me do the transformation first and then show you what happens. So here you see that my columns are all called column 1, column 2, column 3, all the way to the end. Now I'm going to the original file, transform sample file, and I say in the transform tab, use first row as headers, which will bring this up. Right now I have proper column headers, right? But when I go to the mail, which is my final query, I see this error. Now the error is obviously telling you that this was looking for a column named column 1, and because it is not found, it is failing. When I look at my list of steps here, there is one step that is column dependent, because when you change the data type of a column, you can see that in the formula bar as well. When you change the data type of a column, it takes the existing column into the consideration, column 1, column 2, column 3. There is a way to change data type, not based on the column name, but we won't talk about that in this call. That's a little bit different. So what I'll do is I'll remove this step. I can't do the change type after, right? So I'll remove this step. Everything is working fine now, right? The data types are not changed, but I'll do that afterwards, very simply. Okay, so that's all fine, and this formula bar is quite useful. You've seen that I used it in a change type step to figure out why it is failing. You can enable formula bar in the view tab formula bar. Okay, so far we are all good. I'll go back to one extra step here, which is changing the data types. For changing the data types, you can easily select a column and change the data type. Or there's another way to detect data type. I'll explain that as well. But here I'll show you one thing first, and then we'll go to the next demo. So when I change this date data type from text to date, I get it working. Let's say, yep, replace current. I get it working, as you can see, for half of the dates, but for not the other half. You see that it works all the way to 12th, but not the other parts. Now, why is that? Let me bring that CSV file one more time so you can see how the data is stored in over there. Now, this is, of course, stored in New Zealand, let's say, format. This is a Fitbit information, by the way. This is stored in New Zealand format, which is day, month, year, right? Or many other countries also have this kind of format. But my machine, which I intentionally set it as US date format, is different. My machine is month, day, year. This is something that that might happen. You might have a machine with a different date format, different locale, and your input data is in a different locale. You can change the whole locale of your file to be on a different things. On the file options and settings options, there's a place that you can change it. In the regional setting, you can say this is, for example, English New Zealand. It would work everywhere, but sometimes you have data coming in English New Zealand format and in US format. What you do in that case, you can do change type in a different way. So I'll do it in another way. I'll do change type like this. I'll click on this and I say using locale. And using locale option will give me the option to say, okay, what data type I'm changing to. I'm changing it to a data type. If I could find it, yep, here it is. And then I can choose the locale. I'll say this is based on English New Zealand format. So I'll go a little bit up to find it. And it also show me what the format looks like and things like that. I click on OK. And here is the result. Now you can see the result is showed in US date format, month first, then let's say the day and the year, right? It doesn't matter how it is presented here. The main important thing is this, that this column from now on is a date column. It's not a text column. It is presented like this here, but if I save this file, I send it to you, your machine is in a different format, it will show you on the format that you have right over there. The main thing is that regardless of the locale of your machine, this data type change works perfectly fine everywhere, right? So now going back to here, showing you one other thing as well. If you want to change data type of all columns, there's an easy way to do that. You can select all the columns, Control A, under transform, use detect data type, and that would change the data type of all columns. Of course, if you have any locale changes or things like that, you have to do that before this step. So here you go. I have all these data cleaned up, ready for me to explore more, right? Really simple, works perfectly fine. Okay, that was my first demo to show you, which was a set of data cleaning exercise, data filtering exercise, and things such as data type change based on a locale. Now, the second example I'm going to show you.
Excuse me, Reza, we have a question about what was the source name on that first example? That was fantastic, by the way.
Oh, thank you. So the source file was these CSV files that I used. These are Fitbit data, Fitbit activities for every day, like how many calories burned, how many steps and things like that. And I sent that through email. So the source was getting data from Exchange, which is giving you the access to the email provider that you have in Exchange, which is over here coming. Yep, here it is, Microsoft Exchange.
Excellent. I hope that answers your question, Khalifa. Thanks so much, Reza.
Right, you're welcome. Okay, the next example is we also have this ability, very wonderful feature in Power BI, which you can go and say get data from a folder. Right, it is coming in a second. Yeah, get data from a folder. Now I have a folder. This time it is Excel files in that folder. Right, this is not CSV files, but it is like converted version of those CSV files. I converted it with a purpose of showing something else in this example. So here you see that I have a bunch of Excel files, and these Excel files I can get it combined with that approach. I can say get data from folder, and I paste that folder path over here. Now the difference, however, here is that before I combine it, let me show you every file here. I just added a little bit complexity here to show you what happens if we have that scenario. Because this is Excel file, we have different sheets. Now the thing is that I renamed these sheets intentionally to show you that what happens if the sheet name is not the same. So here you see that sheet name is 2016-07. If I open another file, 2016-08, right? So the sheet name is changing. Now going back to get data from folder. So here I am. I say, okay, transform data to bring it in this format. And let's say I'm going to combine these, right? So I'll remove other columns and combine files. When you say combine in Power Query in that navigator window, that will also do the same thing. Now, when I combine it, it asks for one of those files to be sampled. And then it asks me which sheet in that file I want. Now, in that file, which is the first file, I only have this sheet, which probably is only in that file, not in other files, right? So when I go and select it, it is going to work for one file. I'll wait for a second for this to process. Here it is, right? You see that it is going to work for one file, but everything else is error. Right, you see that line at the bottom, right? So it is only processed one file, right? Not more than that. What is the problem? Of course, the problem is that this is looking for a sheet name which only exists in one of those files. Now, when you use get data from a folder, this also acts like a function process. Now I have two functions sets here. The first one was the one that I used for email. Right. The second one is the one that I used for files. So I'll go to this one. I'll go to the file for this one to find out what is happening over there. So I'll come here. There is a navigation step here. So I'll remove this promoted headers. I'll remove the I don't remove the navigation step, but here it is, the navigation step. In the formula bar, I see that it is saying that go to this sheet with this name. And the sheet with this name only exists in the first file, right? It doesn't exist in other files. But instead of this, instead of using the name of the sheet, I can use something which I call a record locator. So how this works, let me go one step back. If I have a list of records in a table, let's say this is one record, I might have the second record, third record, fourth record, like that, right? If I have a list of records, and I want to point to any specific records, these are indexed based. So the first record here, this shows 1, but in fact this is index 0. This is index 1, index 2, index 3. This is how the record index works in Power Query, right? So if I want to go to this first sheet, no matter whatever the name of that is, in my navigation step, instead of doing this, instead of anything in that curly bracket, I can just replace it with 0, right? Use 0 inside that curly bracket. I've written a blog article about that if you are interested to see how it is working, right? Okay, so after doing that, the rest, like promoting headers, change type, things like that, works just fine. I remove change type because I'm not going to do that at the moment. But now when I go to that final result, you see that all the files populated. Fine, right? I need to do some cleaning, like removing the first row, cleaning things like that, similar to what I've done in the other example, but I'm not going to do that because that's the repeated work. The main thing here for you to understand was to use the concept of record locator, which is this index over here. So if I always know that the first sheet of my Excel file is going to contain the data, I can just use that instead of the name of the sheet. In that case, if the name of the sheet changes, it is not going to affect my Power Query transformation. Okay, so that was the third demo. The second demo I wanted to show you. Now the next demo, which is kind of an important one, is pivoting and unpivoting data. These are two very useful transformations for a very specific scenarios. Let me first show you what my data look like. So here I have a data file like this. Get it slightly bigger. If you have a finance data, it is very likely that you get it this way, like budget information, let's say. I have the year, you can consider this as a financial year, and I have every every period, like month here as well, month 1 to 12. Now for every year, for every month, I have a specific budget value, right? If I want to get this data into the Power BI, I need to change the format of this because this is a good way of presenting the data. It's not a good way of storing data. Because, for example, if I have this data like this in Power BI, and then I want to find out what is the total value of a year, what should I do? I should have a column here that is sum of all of these. for a year. What if I want to have the total of first quarter? I should have a column here that is some of these. Second quarter, some of these, right? Third quarter, some of these. You see that it's not easy data to work with. For working with data, with this data, I need to do hundreds of calculations to get it working. Where if I had it formatted in the right way, I just connected to a date table and everything was working fine, right? So what is the right way of formatting this data? The right way of formatting this data would have been having the year as a column, which is right now like that, but having months also as a column, like month 1, month 2, month 3, but rows, multiple rows for that column, right? And their values. That is something we can do with onPivot, right? So let me show you how we can do that. I'll go ahead and get data from this file. So this would be an Excel file to work with, and it is one folder up over here. So this is that sheet I'm going to talk about. I just bring it into the Power Query editor window. Wrong folder. Let me move it to other queries. Here it is. Okay, so that's that one. Now to change that format, onPivot is a very simple exercise. You can right click on the column that you don't want to change. In this case, my year column is going to stay the same. Everything else is transposing. This is not normal transpose, because if I say normal transpose, it would look like this, right? Every year would become a column, right? So I don't do transpose. I want years to be like that. I want everything else to transpose, and I have months as rows, right? So for that, then I can do it like this. Right click on this column. There's an option that say onPivot other columns, right? That's it. Just a right click will give me whatever I want. So as soon as I click on that, everything changed magically. I have the year column. I have all of the month labels or month names as a column, their values as another column. So 2010 month 1 is this, 2010 month 2 is this, 2010 month 3 is this, and then all the way 2011 month 1, 2, 3, all the way down, right? With one single transformation. I'll just show it to you because that happened really fast. Right click on the column that you don't want to be transposed and then say onPivot other columns, right? Just like that. Very simple, very powerful and useful. Definitely recommended in a scenario that you get data in a pivoted way. So this onPivot helps with that. Now, reverse of this action is called pivot, which means if I change a data set from this format to something that it was before, but we never do that when we have data like this, especially in this scenario of budget. We don't really go and change it back to that format, right? Because it's not helpful. We have scenarios that it might be helpful though. Look at this file as an example. Now, this file is a little bit different. This is a file with a name value structure. I have an ID. Let's say this is list of employees. This is employee ID. And I have fields like this. So you can read this file like this. This is one employee. This is another employee, right? All of these ID ones is one employee. First name Reza, last name Rad, age 37. I'm much older than this. This is old data. Job consultant. And then this is the second employee, right? This is not a good way of storing this data, right? This is unpivoted format for something that should have been pivoted. These should have been my column names in addition to ID. So I should have like 5 columns: ID, first name, last name, age, job, and their values down under those, right? This is when we do pivot of the data. So I'll do this. I'll get new query from Excel. This time I'll select that file, which is name value. So here it is, that file. Now this time I'm going to do pivot on this data. Now pivot has slightly more actions to do compared to unpivot. It's not just right click and choose unpivot. I'll select the column that is going to be my field headers, my column headers, right? This is the column. Then under transform, I'll go to pivot column. When I pivot column, I choose what is my value column. My value column is called values. And in this case, I don't want any aggregation, so don't aggregate. Otherwise, it just gives you an aggregation, which is count or something like that. So here it is. I got all these data in a right format. ID is one column, first name, last name, age, job, all working perfectly fine with each other. So I changed it from this format, name value, which was not a usable format, now to this format. Sometimes you need to pivot your data, like this example. Sometimes you need to unpivot it, like the previous example. These are very useful transformations that can help you in different scenarios. Okay, now I have two more demos to go through. One is merging tables. This is like merge or append. What is their difference? This is one of the most asked questions whenever I do a Power Query course or presentation. What is the difference in these two? I have a video about that, and that is like one of the top most viewed videos, the difference between these two. So I'm going to show you that very simply here as well. Let's say I have 3 tables, right? Let me just bring those tables here for a second and show you what the tables look like. Let's say I have 3 tables, which are product, product category, product subcategory. In a previous webinar I did here, which was about data modeling, I explained that it's good to flatten your dimension. If you have product, product category, product subcategory, it's good to combine them all together in one query rather than having them in 3 separate queries, and call that your product table. That is something you can do with a merge. A merge operation is combining tables together in a way that you find the matching rows, you add more columns to your table. You might have more records, depends on the way that merge works, depends on the way that your matching records works, but the main thing is that you are adding more columns into your table. That is why you are merging tables, right? So I'll start this with my product table. My product table has a column which is product subcategory, and that is going to join to the subcategory table. Then my subcategory table has a column called product category, which is going to join to product category table. I'm going to combine all of these in one. So I'll start with the product, and I start with this option up here, merge queries. But I choose merge queries as new. Let's say I don't want to change my existing table. I just want to create a new table with the results. So merge queries as a new. I choose the table that I'm merging with, which would be subcategory. Then I choose the key columns to join. In this case, product subcategory key here and product subcategory key there. You notice that we have some null values over there, which doesn't matter for this example. So we'll just go ahead with that, right? So I'll select that and this, and if you have more fields, you can just hold the Control key and select more like this. I just have one field, so I'll select that, click OK. Now my second table comes like this, right? My second table comes as a field here that has a table in every cell, which is just like this, right? Now what I'll do is if I click on the table, I'll see the records of that table, and for some of these you see that it's blank because that record specifically didn't have any subcategory. But if I go well down, I'll find some other records that have it. Now I'll expand it. Let's say from this table I want English product subcategory name and product category key because I want to use this to join to the product category table. Right, click on OK, and this will come like that. You see again a lot of null values. That is because I explained to you that we have a lot of product subcategories nulls. But if I go down, now you see that these records, I managed to get their product subcategory name just like this, right? I combine those two tables. So I don't really need subcategory or dim product. I can right click on those and uncheck the enable load, which makes sure that those are not loading in the final result. I'm going to call this product. Now, same thing I do with product category. I merge this one more time. This time with product category based on product category key here and the product category key column that I fetched in the other table, right? Same process. Clicking OK. This comes as a table like that. I just expand it, and this time I just want English product category name, right? So as a result, I have product category, subcategory, and all other information about the product in one table. I don't really need this column anymore. I can remove it. That's one of the good things about Power Query. You can do some transformations, and then after applying some extra steps that you don't need this transformation, you can, this specific column, you can just remove that column, right? Here it is. And I can bring these columns a little bit back into the first columns, but let's leave it like that, right? And I don't need this table as well. So my product table is the only table that I need instead of these 3 tables. It would make my model far simpler if I have one table to join to my sales table rather than 3 separate tables and thinking about possible both directional relationships that I need and things like that. So merging tables can help me to flatten my tables, to combine my tables that are kind of related to each other, to flatten that structure, flatten a dimension table, and build a table like this, right? After doing this, you need to uncheck the enable load for the source tables because you are loading them here as a result anyway, right? You can send these also to a folder if you prefer them to be in a folder. So I'll say product queries are in a folder. It's called group, but it's the same thing. So move to group, to product queries, to product queries. Usually I keep one folder for all of queries that are loading in the end result. I call it final queries, and queries for and folders for all other things. But this is a standard that you need to find what is working best for you. Okay, now up to the last example. I want to show you the last example. You learned about merge. What is the scenario to use append? Append is a scenario that you would use if you have different tables with different values. Now you want to create a consolidated list. Now let me show you that with another example. Let's see if I have that file here. If I don't, I can just get it one more time. So let's say I get data from Excel and I have this Excel file which has these 3 tables in it. Each of these tables has a product field in it, right? I'm going to combine all of these into one product table. Let's say this product is different from that product. Let's say I don't have a product table. I want to combine them all in one. Merge in this scenario doesn't work because merge is only going to find matching rows. I want to create a consolidated list of all of these. Like some of these products is in one table only, it's not in another table, right? Merge usually is for finding matching rows. So what I'll do, I'll select all of these tables. Okay, now they went also to product queries, which is fine. I'll keep it over there. Because I want only product table, I'll remove other columns in each table. In the sales table, it is called product name. I'm going to call it product as well. And remove other columns. So I have 3 tables with product values, but these values might be matching, might not be. I want to have a list of all of these products. That is when I use append instead of merge. So I'll select one of these. Again, I'll say append query as new. This time it's append compared to merge. This time I'm using append queries. So append queries as new. And I'll select all of these tables. So inventory is one of those, manufacturing and sales are the other two. And here is the result of append. You see all of these added after each other. Append means adding rows to each other versus merge. It's a different way of combining tables. Merge is when you want to add more columns. Okay, now here as a final result, as a final option, I can say remove duplicates. And this would be my product table to use. For this scenario also, I need to go to the source tables and disable the load for those, right? Because this would be my final table and I can call it, I don't know, product consolidated table or something like that, right? Okay, so back to my slides one more time. So I explained all of these methods to you. Through these methods, I explained some actions, transformations that are helpful, which you use these usually on a day-to-day basis if you use Power Query for data transformations, and not really complex transformations you have seen in this example. They've been all simple transformations to use, but very useful scenarios. I have a lot of articles about Power Query. These demos that you have seen, I have articles about all of these free available in Red Hat website. You can go and watch it. And I have a video course that you can go and check out about Power Query as well. Is there any questions? Let me just check.
I don't see any right now. I think we answered Khalifa's question about the source name, but no other new questions right now. But feel free to ask folks on the call. We might want to give it a couple of seconds. That was excellent. Sure, I really loved the merge and append. I know that that's kind of confusing, and I love the unpivot. I use that as well. It's fantastic.
Yeah, very helpful.
Yeah. I learned something new today about bringing in that the email, so that was super interesting.
Yeah, that is quite a useful one. I use it a lot.
That's awesome. That is so awesome. Okay, well, it doesn't look like we have any additional questions, which means you explained everything beautifully and perfectly and everyone understands. So that's excellent.
Great.
So thanks so much, Reza. I mean, we really appreciate your time today.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity, Kelly and Deepak, and looking forward for the next event.